to set something straight. Now, back about a year ago, I spent many videos attacking the hype that is mirrorless. Now you see the keyword in that statement is hype. Mirrorless is not smaller. It's not lighter. It's not superior to DSLR. It is? Yeah, I love my Fuji mirrorless cameras. Let me first start by saying that I've heard many comments. Here's like one of them. I find it incredibly ironic that one of the biggest bashers of mirrorless cameras has now become, a big fan of mirrorless cameras because I made a lot of videos about Fuji. Been shooting actually part of the day with the Fuji X-T2, which I brought with me down here to the other house in Florida. Love the hell out of Fuji. The hype that is mirrorless. Nothing has changed. If you actually scroll back a year, and you certainly don't have to, but if you want to, certainly go ahead. I talked about the hype of mirrorless being bullshit. It is 100% bullshit. Here's a fact, okay? Being far smarter than the average bear, I know that specification sheets don't mean anything. A lot of the stuff that impresses people that are not incredibly intelligent, like, wow, that's an incredible specification sheet. Make them buy certain cameras. That camera will remain unnamed. You know what I'm talking about. That stuff doesn't impress me. If this lens were glued onto this camera, well, I would already know whether it was a mirrorless camera or not, so that's actually not a good analogy, but if I did not know this were a mirrorless camera versus like the Nikon D500, it's like I never saw these cameras before and they stripped the name off, I would buy both, and I do own both. I don't care whether there's a flappy mirror or not inside this damn camera. I didn't buy this thing because it's a mirrorless camera. There's absolutely not one thing about the Fuji X-T1 or X-T2, which I own two of each now, that and the X100T, and a couple other Fujis that I've gotten rid of, like XE1, not just because I don't need that many damn cameras, obviously. The reason I own a Fuji has nothing to do with it being a mirrorless camera. We have to transcend the mirrorless hype. This is not a smaller camera. Everybody shows you the camera without the vertical grip, without the lens mounted on it, and they go, oh my god, look how small that camera is. I said over a year ago that is bullshit hype. It is. You know why? Because that camera can't take a damn picture. What do you mean by that? A Sony can't take a picture, the body, and a Fuji can't take a picture. You see, a body needs a neat little thing called a lens, and once you slap a nice fast lens on there, or like the 50 to 140 Fuji, the f2.8, which I have sitting behind this camera about 4 feet away, that's a big ass lens. Once I stick that on there, and this vertical grip, for example, has 2 additional batteries, this is not a tiny camera. Everything I said in bashing mirrorless hype, the keyword here being hype, is as valid now as it was a year ago. I don't buy a camera, or not buy a camera, based on the fact that it has a floppy mirror in it or not. That's the technology of the future right there. That camera is very small, and it doesn't have a flappy mirror inside. What sort of dumbass... Well, actually, there's a lot of people that do that. What sort of dumbass would make a decision based upon a specification sheet and a bunch of corporate shills and schmucks telling you this is the future? Really? Simplicity is divinity. Do you know what it actually takes to feed the power and the electronics and the data buffering to that electronic viewfinder inside any and every mirrorless camera? It's rather substantial. It's part of the reason why all mirrorless cameras have a shitty battery life. Do you know what is really, really, really simple? And I've taken apart a lot of cameras. Certainly a lot more than you. Is a little mirror that, I never heard of a mirror. I heard one Canon mirror recently breaking. They never break. Basically, they never break, okay? Now, they can and do, but they basically don't break. A pentaprism, which is a solid monolithic piece of glass, and a flappy mirror. Do you know what electronics it takes to feed a mirror and a pentaprism? Now, the mirror does have to move. There is a mechanism assembly for the mirror. It raises and lowers the mirror. Okay, we all know that. Basically, the answer is nothing. Versus a lot of electronics, an electronic viewfinder, and battery sucking viewfinder display to feed the electronic viewfinder of any and all mirrorless, whether that be Sony or Fuji. Okay, there's really not 2 cents of difference between the two. However, the viewfinder is a lot bigger on the Fuji than it is on the Sony. Yeah, you see this, while it's a small little camera, there's a lot of complicated battery sucking electronics that actually feed that viewfinder. You see, if you take the battery out of a Nikon, okay, interesting thing is you can still see through the lens and see through the viewfinder. I have said since day one that mirrorless hype is bullshit. I own a Fuji because it's an incredible camera that has impressed the shit out of me. Excuse my language, but let me repeat that. It's an incredible camera that has impressed the crap out of me. Now, I've heard a lot of people say why you should buy a mirrorless camera. Okay, so what are those reasons? Bigger isn't always better? Well, mirrorless cameras are not any smaller. Now, the cameras themselves are pretty small, but once you stick a damn lens on there and a speed light on there, which I never recommend anybody stick a speed light on the hot shoe of a camera because that's the shittiest light possible. Unless you're a news photographer, a photojournalist. Mirrorless is not smaller. I don't care if we're talking about Sony or Fuji, okay? All mirrorless is not smaller. It's bullshit. Big optics is big optics is big optics. I have attacked mirrorless hype since day one. I love the hell out of Fuji because I know cameras a lot better than the average bear out there. I bought Fuji because it's an incredible camera. Fuji doesn't give a shit about me. They're not giving me anything. I bet Fuji's actually ticked. It's like Fuji's probably going, oh my god, there's this guy that's always praising us on YouTube, but he's like fat, bald, and tattooed. It's like they're going like, dope! I know some of the people at Fuji Corporate are probably I know they're thinking that. I know they are. Not that I'm psychic, but I know that's exactly what they're thinking. Why the hell do I own a Fuji? It's a mirrorless camera. That camera, you notice that I just held up in front of you, it's not small. There's nothing small about that camera with that 16 to 55 2.8 on there and 3 batteries, 1 in the camera and 2 in the vertical grip. That's not a small camera. I bought it because it's the absolute shit. Yeah, if you don't know, English slang, saying something is shit is actually really high praise. It's made in Japan on magnesium chassis. Incredible attention to detail, firmware updates, customer service, build quality, autofocus speed, features. Love the shit out of it. Excuse my language. That's high praise. 6 old manual focus lenses on there, focus peaking. Wow. There's the one and really only advantage, to me, of mirrorless, focus peaking. Nikon and Canon actually can allow live view focus peaking, and they probably will in the near future, but that'll be live view. No big deal. So that's even possible with a regular DSLR camera. But I don't own Fuji with the notion that, hey, this is the future, this is mirrorless technology. I never bought into mirrorless hype and bullshit, and I still don't. Everything I said about mirrorless over a year ago holds true. It's not smaller. It's not better. I bought Fuji because it's a Fuji, and what it represents as far as build quality, design, customer service, execution of precision Japanese quality. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. To me, something that gets me going is true attention to detail, fine Japanese precision, just like a clear, perfect bell ringing. That gets me going, and that is the Fuji. That's the only reason I bought into Fuji. Their glass, their attention to detail, customer service, build quality, everything that is that camera is the reason I bought it, and it does not have one damn effing thing to do with the fact of it having or not having a flappy mirror inside of it. If anybody tells you that, well, mirrorless is the future, that's why you need to buy a mirrorless camera, it's smaller. It's not smaller, and there's not one damn thing wrong with a camera having a flappy mirror in it. Not one damn thing. You know, There have been no working professionals these past many years going, oh my god, I can't wait till they eliminate this shit out of the camera, the flappy mirror, because it's always breaking. Not only are they not always breaking, they basically never break anymore. They can and do, once in a blue moon, but they basically don't break anymore. And it's not an issue for anything. No working professionals gone, oh my god, I can't wait till they take the mirror out of this camera, because then the future will be here. There'd been no professional photographer ever say that shit. None. Not a single one. So that's why I own a Fuji. Short, sweet, and simple. And the hype that surrounds mirrorless is still hype. It's not smaller. And the fact that it doesn't have a flappy mirror in there, that doesn't mean shit, and that's not why I own a Fuji. I own it for everything that it makes it a Fuji. Not because it's a mirror.